Three, two, one, here we go. RAINMAN'S Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man with another episode for you today. I'm calling this one, Are You Tired of the Lies Yet? And before I get into that, I just want to say if you are part of the RAINMAN'S Take community, thank you very much. If you're new to the program, welcome. I know you're going to love the content. So if you could, go ahead and hit that subscribe button at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And also, if you could watch this video to the end, that will help me with the YouTube algorithm, which will in turn get the word out to more people and continue the conversation going. So thank you very much. And with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into today's episode. Again, are you sick of the lies? Are you tired of the lies that we've been fed over the last probably 8 years as it relates to American politics? And I'll get into a couple of, actually 5 examples of some of the bigger lies that I've noticed. And then at the end, just kind of wrap it up by saying that I think people are getting sick of it. I think people are starting to understand that the mainstream media is just lying straight to your face when they present stories. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with lie number 1, that Joe Biden is healthy, that he is fit for duty, that he is the smartest man in the room a lot of the time. We've been hearing that lie pretty much ever since he took office in 2020. Now, it wasn't nearly as bad as it is now, but you really quickly started to see a mental degradation up until the point now where he is just a shell of a man, and it's almost difficult to watch, and you almost feel angry at not only Joe Biden, but all of his other handlers within his administration. I mean, in my mind right now, it looks like elder abuse, what they're making him go through. But if you recall, over the last 4 years, Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, Kamala Harris, every major Democratic politician over the course of the 4 years kept saying he's in great shape. He's with it. He's 100% mentally with it. He's making great decisions. He's in complete control of his faculties. He's the smartest guy in the room a lot of times behind closed doors. Disregard what your eyes are actually watching on television when we see him stumbling around, when we see him wandering around. Just recently, his trip to Africa was unbelievable. He's sitting at a conference table. Several other African leaders are there talking, and literally Joe is sleeping with his hand over his head like this, kind of leaning gently onto his hand. And it's obvious that the guy is sleeping. And so that lie has been completely exposed. So that's the first big one. The mainstream media lied through their teeth. All of our leaders lied through their teeth about his mental and physical capabilities and his capacity to do the job as president. That opens up questions that I hope get answered someday. Most important one being is if Joe's not there, and it's obvious he isn't, if he's not running the show, then who actually is? And that's a really important question that I hope we get the answer to. And I hope they don't lie to us about that, but I'm sure they will. The next big lie that we were told, and it was unbelievable to watch, is as soon as Joe stepped aside and they anointed Kamala as the candidate for president, as soon as that happened, literally the mainstream media, all the talking heads, started describing her as the most qualified, the best candidate for president ever. I mean, the hyperbole was unbelievable. And it was all lies, because everybody knew that in 2020, even in the presidential primaries for the Democratic Party, she was out after the first debate because she didn't get 1% of the vote in that primary. Nobody wanted her back then. So how all of a sudden was she the greatest thing since sliced bread 3 months ago when Biden, quote unquote, decides to get out of the race? So flat out lying to you. They were lying to us, trying to tell us that she was something that obviously she is not. And that played itself out naturally in the election. She got crushed because nobody believed any of the stuff that the mainstream media was saying about her. And it was very, very apparent on election day. The next major lie was basically anything having to do with Hunter Biden. Let's go all the way back to October of 2020, right before the election. The laptop comes out and makes the news immediately, as this is unbelievable. And sure enough, almost immediately after it comes out, you have every single mainstream media outlet, all the talking heads. You had that letter from 51 current and former intelligence officers from the United States, all saying that this is Russian disinformation, that the laptop is not true. This is all inaccurate, meant to smear. And unbelievably, the mainstream media put a lid on that story and then it stopped. And I'm convinced that if that story had gotten out when it came out, and if it had the legs that a story like that should have had, that there's no way that Biden gets elected in 2020. Now, the lie was that nothing on that laptop was true. It was all disinformation. Well, sure enough, a couple of years later, FBI comes back out and says, well, we had the laptop early on. We knew it was accurate. We knew everything in there was true and was not disinformation. And it finally comes out a couple of years ago that yes, in fact, that was actually all that information was accurate about Hunter Biden. So that's the first one about Hunter. Second one is right around that whole time, the whole scandal of Burisma sitting on the board of that Ukrainian energy company, and Joe telling people that Hunter Biden is the smartest person he knows. Hunter Biden is has the most integrity of anybody that he knows, that Hunter just was this perfect person. And obviously, it's a father trying to protect his son, but Joe's lying through his teeth because everybody knows now and back then. I mean, it was out in the open right from the get-go that Hunter had some serious issues, and he was being covered. It was all being covered up by the lies of mainstream media and the administration. And then, lastly, about Hunter is just recently Joe pardoning him for the 2 felonies that he was found guilty over, the gun charge and the tax charges. However, the pardon actually goes back 10 years, and the language in the pardon basically says for any crimes that he may have committed or may not have committed or have been accused of. And that's just a huge swath of things that Hunter was doing over the last 10 years that are now off the table. So why is that a lie? Because Biden, from the get-go, when all of this started about Hunter and all the problems that he was having, Joe said from day one, it was adamant about it. Karine Jean-Pierre was adamant about saying that there's no way that the president is going to pardon his son. And Joe just said, I'm not going to pardon my son, or nobody's above the law. And sure enough, apparently Hunter Biden's above the law. And Joe turned around and pardoned him last week. Now, what I find fascinating is the mainstream media was covering Joe about that to the point where this is from The View. And I just read an article recently, a couple of days ago, The View. Apparently, Griffith, basically said, she was really frustrated that Joe had lied to us about pardoning Hunter, that he said he wasn't going to do it, and yet he turned around and did it. And apparently Whoopi Goldberg shot back at her and said, can we please stop calling it a lie? So Whoopi, what is it then if it's not a lie? What is it? He said he wasn't going to do it, and he turned around and did it. I just find it funny that the mainstream media and the talking heads are all trying to justify his lying to the American people about that. And I find that fascinating. I'll get to the mainstream media here at the end and kind of talk about how I think things are going and where I think things are going. But the last 2 lies I want to just kind of go over are the January 6th committee. Just recently, it came out that the January 6th committee either omitted exculpatory evidence or actually destroyed exculpatory evidence of several of the defendants in the January 6th events of January 6th at the Capitol. And so that committee was lying to you. They were trying to build a narrative, and they didn't care how they did it, to the point where omitting information or flat out destroying it. I mean, right now, I believe there is a congressional inquiry wanting to have all of the information that the January 6th committee used, all of that information. They want it. Well, it's either missing or it's been destroyed, which I find unbelievable. So right from the get-go, they were lying to you, and they were going to manipulate everything to get to that narrative that Trump was guilty of a insurrection. I firmly believe that is not the case. That doesn't even go into the fact that there was apparently over 200 undercover FBI agents in that crowd on January 6th. So go figure that. And we were told that was not the case either. So pretty much everything around January 6th has been a lie. All right. Now the final sort of string of lies, I guess you'd call it, is our boy Adam Schiff, who unfortunately just got elected as one of the senators from California. Pretty much right from the get-go, when Trump took office in 2016, any chance Schiff could get to get in front of a television camera on all the news channels, with the exception of Fox, but all the mainstream media channels, to say that we've got him this time. We've got him. We've got the evidence. It's going to come out. We've got the evidence that Trump is guilty of all the wrongdoings that he was accused of. The evidence is there. We'll show it to the American people. That evidence has never come to the fore. Schiff was lying the entire time to keep the narrative going that Trump was a bad guy and was guilty of all these things. That information, that evidence never came. And he was basically exonerated from all of the impeachments and all of the other trials that he's been involved in were based off of lies that Schiff was perpetuating over the last really 6 to 8 years. It's sad that California rewarded him with one of the seats in the Senate from California. To kind of close this out about the media, and I think this is really important, and this gives me hope and gives me optimism for the future, and that is, I think the American people are starting to wake up. I mean, it feels like they are. And this past election in November, the landslide victory of Trump, it looked like basically the entire country said, you know what? We don't believe what we're being told about Trump. We don't believe what you are trying to make us believe. We don't believe the lies. And I think and I hope that is the case. And I hope moving forward, we just build upon that the American citizenry has kind of woken up to the fact that, over the last 10 years, they've been lied straight to their face by the news sources that they supposedly and used to trust. If you hear a lie often enough, and you know it is a lie, you just start to tune out those people that are lying. And that is actually what's happening right now. I just read an article that MSNBC, Comcast has actually got that on the chopping block because it's tanking in its ratings. These are shows like Rachel Maddow's show and others that are just tanking in the ratings in the coveted 18 to 25-year-old slot, which is one of the major markers for advertising. I believe the last number that I saw that came out, MSNBC had 38,000 views from that demographic. Now, if you juxtapose that with Joe Rogan interviewed pretty much anybody throughout this election cycle that wanted to come on there. Obviously, none of the Democrats wanted to come on, which is fine. The problem is that Joe had, for Trump's interview, had over 44 million views. Compare that to MSNBC with 38,000 views. So it's obvious people are tuning out the mainstream media. And I personally believe it's because we realize that now we've been lied to for the last 10 years, straight to our face all the time. People want to get the truth and they know they're not getting it from the mainstream media. That is a good thing. That's a positive thing. And it's something that I've always stated in this show, and that is you need to get your information from multiple sources. You need to be suspicious of the information. Dig deeper. Don't just take it as face value. And I think people are starting to wake up to that. And this past election, I think, was indicative of people waking up. So we shall see. But I wanted to just throw those 5 out there. They continue, the mainstream media continue to lie. It's up to us as informed citizens to either call them out on it by turning them off, vote them out like we just did. Those are good things, and keep it up. So that's it for today's episode. Let me finish off like I always do, and that is if you are in the police departments, fire departments, or first responders, if that's you out there, thank you very much for your service. Stay safe. This is the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, observations on the world we live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.